Haven't Seen It with Tim Sestito and Tommy Tevenet.
Hello, everybody. Welcome on in. Thank you all so much for listening today. This is a podcast where one of us is watching a movie for the very first time. Today, that is Tommy. We are joined by Upstairs Steve, as he will be joining us all month for Soundtrack Month. We're doing iconic movie soundtracks that we have never, that one of us has never seen before. And this time, we got a banger. We got Saturday Night Fever. We got John Travolta.
A lot better than Judgment Night.
That goes without saying, Tommy. That goes without saying, okay? If you listened to last week's episode, you know for
Our longest episode ever.
Our longest episode ever.
And your most streamed, ironically.
Yeah, of the year so far. Yeah.
I think you've unlocked the key to success.
Yeah, maybe the success formula is Tommy picking out a movie he knows I'm just going to hate with every core fiber of my being, so that way I can just let the venom out. It pent up here, but I was thinking about this. So I had seen this movie once in high school. watched it on Netflix, but not what you're thinking Netflix. I got Citizen Kane and Saturday Night Fever double feature from Netflix DVDs. And I watched...
What a combo.
Yeah.
Well, I remember being like, I want to learn more about classic movies. So somehow I ended up with Saturday Night Fever and Citizen Kane. Just two very random, polar opposite movies. We will have to cover Citizen Kane at some point. But
yes,
I'm a huge disco head. I have a 5-hour silent disco playlist that I made for a friend's birthday party a few years ago. And half of this soundtrack is just hammered in there. I think when I originally watched the movie, I probably wasn't ready for it. It's got a lot of adult themes. I think there's a misconception that this is some musical, just disco musical movie, and that's kind of what's driving the plot, but it's not really the story or the heart of this movie. And I also think this movie is interesting in that its reputation has diminished since, I would say, the 2010s onwards. Just there's a lot of use of harsh language in here. There's a rape scene indicted in here,
and class culture too,
which is not what you expect in this movie.
Yeah, it's not what you expect, but it feels honest to probably the area and the time period.
100% is honest to the area, but it's in a way a period piece if you think about it that way.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, for outsider looking in, this is not the prequel to Grease. This is not a musical at all. It's heavy music driven, but it's really a lot more about capturing the time period during the disco era in New York City where it was thriving the most, and all the class culture and all the just, struggles that a lot of people were going through to really get out of the hood, so to speak, and, for lack of a better phrase,
Yeah.
It really has it has a very, very basic baseline plot, boy meets girl, right? But it's everything that's shot in between. It's the relationship with the friends, the relationship with the parents. It's the struggle with the shitty job. And the overall arcing theme of music is kind of used as sort of an escapism for a lot of the protagonists in this character, just to kind of get away from all that.
The movie itself, to me, like I said, I think it's definitely lost a little bit of cultural relevancy. But the soundtrack, I feel like, has still stayed in the culture.
Yeah.
You still, we were talking earlier before we recorded, you go to a wedding, you're going to hear Staying Alive. That's going to be on the playlist, unless the wedding's a fucking lame one. That's definitely one of the songs you hear over and over and over again. The Bee Gees pretty much became back to prominence. They were dead in the water before this movie came out.
So I rewatched this part of the Bee Gees documentary. So they were dead in the waters in the early 70s. They had prominent hits in that hippie culture,
late 60s,
Beatlemania, British
if you haven't
Revolution.
listened to any of those songs, please do. They're incredible.
They are incredible. And then they really got it back with Jive Talkin' when they were down in Miami. They were about to be dropped from Atlantic Records. And then for this, they recorded the soundtrack in France. They were there for tax reasons, and they were also helping Elton John on a record out there as well. And this movie came along in this thing, and that's where the idea for the title of the movie came from, because the movie's based on New York New Yorker article, and it just had like this working title. And the song Night Fever, they were like, we really like that title, but it just sounds a little too adult filmish if you just named your movie Night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Standalone Night Fever. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, so they added Saturday Night Fever to it, and that's where the origin of this title uh, came from. And there's a lot of other little tidbits that we'll definitely talk about more with this. I feel like one of the things, like, and not to keep bringing up and burying Judgment Night, but anyway, I hammered the point home last episode.
Yeah.
He's
But
still not over it.
He
I'll
still has
never
that Venom.
it's
The
gonna
Venom's never coming out.
it's gonna be on my grave, okay? It's gonna be on my tombstone, dude.
We're gonna be recording an episode a year from now, and he's still gonna be. Remember we covered Judgment Night?
Yeah. I'm gonna make you watch
You-
Gone with the Wind and be like, remember Judgment Night?
But you act like I'm gonna fucking just like hate it. I mean, it's a long movie, but I'm sure I'll appreciate it.
maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
If you can
That's an
withstand your
interesting.
attention
That
span.
I feel like I haven't watched that in a very long time. That one will be interesting to kind of go back into, I think, at some point. If you want to hear,
as long as I don't procrastinate.
but I think with this movie, like like John Travolta is the star and the soundtrack is the star of this movie. It features a lot of songs. I mentioned to you guys when I was watching it, I was like, Paul Thomas Anderson just had this on repeat while he was putting together Boogie Nights. Like, you can just feel that influence from there.
Especially if like the use of Steadicam, like when you think of the opening shot of Boogie Nights and when they go into the club in Boogie Nights, and in this movie, this was one of the first movies that ever used a Steadicam in itself. And when I rewatched the club scene when they first go into the 2001 Odyssey, you just see like a Steadicam tracking shot of just following them, opening the doors and walking into the club, and you could just see like Paul Thomas Anderson saw that and was like, okay, I need to put this something similar in a movie, which he did in Boogie Nights. So. Yeah, very influential on that movie.
Yes, very influential. But I think this movie will lead to an interesting conversation because there are great parts of it. I think there's parts of this movie that are messy, maybe by design, uh, or at least feels like design, because Tony's life is just a mess at this point. And everything around it is messy, and it kind of like works into that atmosphere. Parts of it are controversial, and I think, are illicit discussion, and the way that we like view things like this in a movie. But yeah, it'll be a good conversation. Looking forward to it. But so we always start off the podcast. What have you watched recently? Tommy, you're always at the movie theater. Just tell me.
Yeah.
Just tell me. What have you seen?
So I'll talk about the one I saw on Thursday. I saw They Live, John Carpenter's 1987 movie, which was probably his like most capitalistic critique ever. And They Live is just like a movie that I've seen multiple times, but seeing in theaters just rocked with the audience because you have like the stupid parts of the movie of like the Rowdy Rod Piper of it all, where he says like, "I'm here to kick ass and chew bubble gum, and I'm all out of bubble gum." And you see that, and you're like, "Yeah, let's fucking go, Rowdy Piper." And you have like the scenes where like he puts on like sunglasses and then he sees the alien world that tells you like what the reality actually is like. Where for those who don't know, They Live as John Carpenter, pretty much critiquing the Ronald Reagan era, and it's his most political film by far. And when you go into it, you have Red Piper, who's a drifter. He walks into town and he finds these sunglasses that tells him the hidden world that's actually there. Where he puts on these sunglasses, he looks at a magazine article, and it says like this is like, oh, conform, like, oh, like go back. He looks at money, and the money says, "This is your God." And it's just a thing that like Carpenter over and over again putting these deep political messages into a B movie. This is a movie that has Keith David and Roddy Piper fighting for 8 minutes, and it goes on and on and on. It's hilarious, but it's also a critique of how hard it is to get someone to see your viewpoint, like politically. So it was really fun seeing it on the big screen. See if a crowd, if you ever can see They Live with a crowd, because I think it's one of John Carpenter's like best movies, very underrated in his repertoire.
Sounds
And
like
you have
you're
the
pitching
meme.
it like Judgment Night, where you have to have a a crowd in there, and it's a fun movie to watch when you're drunk with your
No,
friends.
no, no.
But
No,
for
it's
substance,
no, it's better than
No,
that.
no, no.
I've seen
It's
it.
Is
better
it?
than that. You can see They Live like by yourself and still pick it up on everything that goes in and out.
Okay, I haven't seen it,
So
so I don't know.
and it has an awesome John Carpenter score about, so you know it's gonna have a great electronic score. And at the meantime, it just has this deep undercurrent of just critiquing and how much Carpenter just hates the Reagan era. And it still picks up over and over again when you go into like this still plays today in the 2020s, as a critique of Trump in itself too. So
I
it's a
love
fun
movies like that. That like
and
are
same time,
like you can call back to them and be like, "This is still going on in this day and
yeah.
age."
Literally, we're like he puts on the sunglasses. He sees that some people are undercover aliens, and it just like freaks you out. And it's a little freaky and at the same time. It has the goofiness of Ry Piper, like throwing out one-liners. So They Live. Check it out.
All right, I definitely will, especially
Steve,
if Timmy's giving the approval too.
I liked They Live. They Live's a fun time. Good movie.
Nice train.
My my movie isn't nearly as interesting that I watched. I watched a documentary directed by James Fox. It's called The Program. And if you're into aliens and conspiracy theories, you're gonna absolutely love this movie. It's he interviews a bunch of government officials, um, a bunch of eyewitness accounts, and finds a lot of archived footage that was classified, highly classified, of UFOs, and basically just makes another theory that debunks the whole thing that aliens exist. I'm a sucker for these movies, and I'm not going to get too into it because I'll go down a rabbit hole, and this is just going to strictly be about aliens.
Go for it. Go
Conspiracy
for it.
podcasting coming.
Go
Yeah,
for
no,
it.
but it's just all about like all these stories that like we've like if you're into extraterrestrials even like loosely, you've like heard these stories like on podcasts, like reading on the internet, deep diving, etc. He gets in front of government officials that were like tasked to you know like debunk this case, or not debunk it, more like analyze this case. And now that sort of these classified documents, pictures, videos, etc., have sort of been released, he mastered them, discusses what they saw, what they were a part of in these projects, and ultimately leaves you to believe what you want to believe as far as what the evidence shows. And it's all very compelling. It's one of the better UFO documentaries that I've seen. Believe me, I've seen a lot of shitty ones. So
Yeah, that's the type of thing you see like a midnight, when you're high as hell on your couch, and you're like all of a sudden like, holy shit, man, look at this one. They have an actual autopsy of an alien in this. What?
Yeah, no, exactly. It's like little shit like that, and he goes into like the fact that Congress actually had a like public hearing to discuss UAPs and UFOs for the first time in 50 years. And the fact that the government is now recognizing that there was a UAP task force that was under the gun for decades and decades, and they're now finally admitting, yeah, no, this whole thing existed. It goes to show that they're not really showing you the full picture. The government, I'm saying.
The government
So
the government doesn't
it,
show us the full picture. Are you sure about that?
yeah,
Who would
no,
thought?
like crazy, right? I thought they were completely transparent with us the whole
There
entire
you
time.
I always think of that Ron Funches stand-up bit that he has where he's like, I don't understand people who don't believe in any conspiracy theories. Not a single
Oh, yeah.
one. You just think the government's out there batting 1,000. He's like, I have a little 5-year-old boy, and I lie to him all the time. Like
Exactly,
it's just
right?
yeah, it's perfect. It's
But it's cool
What's the
as
stock
fuck.
called again?
It's called The Program. It came out 2 years ago. I
Okay.
found out about it because I heard an interview that the director James Fox gave on the Y Files. This is his first ever movie that he directed where he had full creative control. So he was able to pull resources from all of his contacts essentially. Like he's always like had his foot in it, but he's never really been given full creative control as far as like being like on a documentary is concerned. So he was able to like actually pull his resources that he has known for years and years and years and give testimonies, which is really something in and of itself because a lot of the people that he interviews really didn't want to be interviewed. And even then, they still kind of withhold some facts because they literally say verbatim, if I tell you any more, I'll go to jail. So the fact that like even like some of these people are willing to actually give an interview for this movie is absolutely huge. And some of the stories you'll hear are absolutely mind blowing. So
That's worth it. So we're on an alien conspiracy because between that and They Live.
mhm.
So Tim, can you follow it up? Do you have an alien thing to talk about?
Yeah, I saw When Harry Met Sally.
There
It
you
was
go.
it was just Saturday night rewatch with the girlfriend. Just you know how sometimes you get into that debate when you're on Netflix or Hulu or whatever, and you're just scrolling through, and it's just there's oh yeah, I mean maybe, oh yeah, maybe, yeah,
Can I pick one for Timmy
yeah.
as another movie that I saw? Have you guys seen Battleship?
Oh no.
Oh, speaking of aliens, let me tell you, we should cover this movie. It
We're gonna
is
cover a bad movie month.
It's so bad, but it's so America. It's
I
so
I
America.
feel like
It's not
that one
even
will be
funny.
more entertaining than Judgment Night, but I digress.
Yes, it is. It is. Can
Like
confirm.
I
They
imagine I
drift
will
a
enjoy.
battleship.
I
They
I,
like
I
the
know
best part of
that's
that movie is the last half hour. Don't like, the rest of the movie is absolute garbage. You got fucking Rihanna in it, and
Is that Liam Neeson
Liam Neeson's in it. Hell yeah.
and his
And
famous huge dome?
it's just so bad. But it's worth if you could plow through the horrible movie that it is for the last half hour, you're going to be left with a shining new patriotism for your Navy SEALs.
I'm sure the Hasbro movie is gonna make me feel pride for the Navy SEALs. So When Harry Met Sally, it's just one of those movies you can just it's like putting on a cozy blanket. You just put it
Oh
on
yeah.
and you just sit there and it's just this amazing feeling. It's a great examination of relationships in a contemporary age. Um, very funny, just such. I feel like Billy Crystal never really picked up as like a true movie star, which is kind of a shame. Like I
He's
know
always been kind of a
He
personality,
he had like
he's a
City
personality. He's
Slickers
a
and this. That
personality,
was it.
yeah, but he never got like movie star status. Like when you watch
Yeah.
this, you're like, that guy's got it, and then he just,
I think Analyze This and Analyze That were his most memorable.
yeah.
If like career wise, like not even just opinion based,
Well, Harry Met Sally's probably his most.
Yeah. Harry Met Sally.
apart
The
from that,
A.
yeah.
Where Meg Ryan had this tremendous run in the '90s that just like completely dwarfs Billy Crystal, but it's just one of those movies that I could put on again and again. It's timeless. It's perfect.
Yeah.
And it makes me sad that we lost Rob Reiner, but we are able to continue watching his amazing legacy, his amazing.
You timed it perfectly because it was his birthday. He shares a birthday with me.
Oh, there you go.
And happy birthday, Tommy.
Birthday twins.
Yeah. My birthday was Friday, so Rob Reiner's birthday too.
Just
There you go.
makes me think of that scene in The Office. Hey, Jan, just wanted to say happy birthday. It's not my birthday. Oh, I thought you and I shared a birthday.
Oh yeah.
Happy birthday, Michael.
It's amazing.
That's
Just
exactly
incredible.
what just happened.
This is Saturday Night Fever. Saturday Night Fever is a 1977 American dance drama film directed by John Badham and produced by Robert Stigwood. It stars John Travolta as Tony Manero, a young Italian-American man who spends his weekends dancing and drinking at a local disco while dealing with social tensions and disillusionment in his working-class ethnic neighborhood in Brooklyn. The story is based on Tribal Rights of the New Saturday Night, a mostly fictional 1976 New York article by music writer Nick Cohn. So, Saturday Night Fever, we were talking before about its conflicting legacy. For you guys, for Tommy, and for you, Steve, and I'll even echo this question at myself because this is essentially a rewatching for me because I just kind of remember the dancing and the music. What was it about this movie that really like stood out to you in a way that maybe you
Well,
weren't expecting?
I wasn't expecting the dark underbelly of this movie. As a first part, on a first watch, I mean, like, I think pop culture wise, we think of John Travolta in that white suit and the cheesy image. You see, I mean, like when you step into a record store, chances are you're gonna see this album within there. I saw this over the weekend when I was at a record store, the soundtrack, and I was like, oh shit, it's right there. So there's that aspect, and when you have like a movie where I didn't think there was gonna be, like, a gang rape at the end of the movie. I was like, "Whoa, that came out of nowhere." It's a weird thing of this cultural legacy of this movie. So I guess I'll get into this right now. This film was R-rated when it first came out, and, this is the cut that we all watched, and basically, the soundtrack blew the fuck up, and Paramount wanted to attract a wider audience, so then they re-released this movie, like, 3 years later or 2 years later as PG. They took out the gang rape, they took out, like, any curse words, they took out, like, pretty much anything that you could think of that would, like, maybe we want a kid to see, and then that was the one that they released again, and the film blew up again, had another fucking run over and over again. So I think some people, when they look back at this movie, they probably saw the PG version, and they forgot about
I didn't know that. That's
all
interesting.
the heavy shit and stuff like that. Because I can imagine, like, they're like, "Oh, like, we don't wanna touch that part at all. Like, let's just, like, we want kids to see this movie too, so that's the version, we'll release for the kids."
Yeah, like I mean, that's really what stood out for me too, Tommy, is that like, just the dark underbelly of this movie. And I always knew it was there. Just because first time I saw this movie, I had bought it on DVD with my parents and I watched it with them. They grew up in the Bronx, like in the height of disco, so they lived very, very similar lifestyles, minus, the rape and all that stuff. They were actually decent people. They just did questionable you know, things in their private life as far as sticking narcotics up their nose, maybe. Sorry, mom and dad.
Yeah, we're
Anyways,
gonna make sure your parents listen to this one.
yeah, they know, and they tried to hide it for the longest time. They said, all my friends did drugs, but I didn't. I'm like, yeah, you did. And literally,
Don't
my
lie.
my dad's friends were like, "No, your dad was one of the wilder ones."
I've smoked weed if you're dad. I know this is a lie.
That was like one of the only times I could count where he's actually smoked weed too. So you should be honored up by that. But
Yeah. He saw me. He's like, I got smoked weed with this kid.
but even still, like my first time watching it, I like missed a lot of the like subtleties as far as like the underbelly is concerned. Like the fact
Mm.
that there was drugs everywhere in this movie, and like whether
Yeah.
or not they're doing them or just mentioning them, I didn't really quite know what like the terms were back then. But like their friend falling off the bridge was the first scene I ever remember watching. I remember passing through the living room when it was on one time. They're like, "Oh, Saturday Night Fever, you should see it." And we ended up watching it, and it was way darker than I thought it was gonna be.
Yeah.
Even as a kid, and for some of the stuff that went over my head, when I rewatched it, I realized that there's just so many undertones throughout the entire thing. I mean,
Mm.
like, it's definitely at its surface a very like, simple plot, boy meets girl and like, he wants to be the best dancer like in the neighborhood, but
That's not
it's
that's
all
not I
about
don't
the
think that's
crowd that he runs with.
I don't think that's the part. I don't think it's about, like, being the best dancer. Like, I don't Tony's he's uneducated. I wouldn't necessarily call him, like, unintelligent, but he's not, uh, an educated man, and I
It's a
think for
family Italian man from
yeah,
back in the day,
yeah, he's
like
Yeah.
there's a lot of if you grew up in the New York area, we might be part of the last generation to see this kind of lineage of, like, the true ethnic backgrounds and not just a bunch of imports from, California and Colorado and Illinois that are coming in for work and just gentrifying all these areas or these, like, neighborhoods where still, like, their great great
Very Italian
their
or
great
whatever.
grandparents came here off of Ellis Island and were put
they
on a
built this
bus.
country, goddammit.
Exactly, but they
Yeah.
were put on a bus, dropped in Bay Ridge, and the family lived there for 100 years. Like that is
Yeah.
just that's how the country worked for, a good 100 years. Um, and I kind of like for me it spoke to home. I mentioned to you guys like my mom's family's from Queens Village. My uncles were all my grandfather, his father were all part of the paper rollers union for the Daily News. So they were the ones that would roll out the sheets of paper that it would get printed on and pushed out. And in the early 80s, there was, they went on strike as a part of their union, and scabs came from Chicago, and they literally like went and fought these guys at a Holiday Inn because they were taking their jobs. And there's another undertone here of like the racial stuff where, there's heavy language used, N-bombs, derogatory terms for Latin American,
Hate crimes.
Yeah.
hate crimes,
Literally hate
and
crimes,
assaults, but it's just, I feel like,
Homophobia.
like when I'm watching them talk, like there's instances, not to try to like sit here and be some subject matter expert on nuance and context, but it's just like you're watching this movie from 1977. You feel like you are in it's June 1977. You are in Bay Ridge in this movie. This is probably what you're going to see. Like probably no one as handsome as John Travolta walking around, but like everything else feels like true to what the
Like his friends feel realistic, like in
yeah.
terms of like people you'd see on the street
All of
and
it
stuff
that
like that.
feels like the thing about it is that it's authentic, and it was filmed at a time where Hollywood was really like kind of blowing up, and like filmmakers were really starting to like kind of see what the process was to make a good movie, right? And there that leads to dramatizations and exaggerations and stuff like that. But this movie's very raw for what it is, especially for what the topic that it covers in the time frame that it covers and the location that it covers.
And
I feel like
Well,
it's
like
really ahead of its time in that sort of
even with
regard.
the casting, when you come to the casting, outside of Travolta, this was mostly like cast of unknowns. I mean, Travolta at the time, this was definitely his breakout role. I mean, this is the one that made him a superstar.
Welcome
But
back, Cotter was
he had Welcome Back Carter, and he had Carrie the year before, which was a hit. So he was a supporting role in Carrie, though. So this is the one that made him more than just a TV star. This is the one that made him John Travolta, the movie star we know today. But outside of that, I mean, like, so many people, this is their first movie. Like Fran Drescher was in this movie briefly, and which was insane to think about. And like, you have all these other actors, like most of his friends, like were never in a movie before, and you feel that authentic nature to it when you watch this.
Yeah,
yeah, and just like
100%.
another piece to 1970s filmmaking and like the historical context. Like the 60s is where the studio era like died, and then a lot of like the telecommunication companies really came in and purchased the studios. So you have this time period where you have these people coming into the film industry who know nothing about it. So they just say, "Hey, you're a talented kid. Here's $10 million. Go make your movie and see what comes back." So there wasn't this like studio interference. There wasn't this studio mandate. There wasn't this reliance on IP. It was just like, let's let people make good movies. And I think that's why the 70s films from the 70s are so revered. I feel like in American films and in major like Hollywood productions, it's like one of the only times in where like the artists kind of had the say in what was
Well,
going
yeah,
on.
it all came crashing when Heaven's Gate just bombed, and after that, they're like, "All right, we're gonna rein this in a little bit more," and that's
Yeah,
where the
and
'80s came.
you feel the commercialization of the 80s. I mean, you have same year you have Star Wars coming out, which is where those seed inklings coming in of being like, "Oh, if we make really big, simple stories, good versus evil." If in the 70s movies, you have a lot more. There's a lot more nuance. It's if the late 2000s, early 2010s is the age of the antihero in television, the 70s is the age of the antihero in film. It's where
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
start to abandon that concept of heroes in our stories.
It's the funny thing when you look at this movie on Letterbox, for a movie that's like is in the National Registry of Congress, and the soundtrack is too, which is insane. I don't think I've ever seen that before, where both the movie and the soundtrack were like in the National Library of Congress. So, like, this is historically important. This needs to be in there. Um, which is another thing we'll talk about later. But like the when you see like everything going on Letterbox, you have so many people. Like I feel like most of these are Gen Z reviews that are like fuck this movie. This movie's a piece of shit. Like the characters are awful. It's a weird thing of media literacy we see more and more today, where people like aren't able to realize like this is not glorifying what's going on. I don't think this movie is like trying to say like,
No.
oh, it's cool that the characters are doing this. No, not whatsoever. This is not, you know, we have,
It's Boys in the
and when you
Hood,
have that,
but for disco in the 70s.
And I think it's like we're talking about the gang rape scene, and there's a girl, Annette, who's just kind of madly in love with Tony, and he's just kind of not interested and keeps pushing her away. She keeps, you know, closer and closer, trying to get closer and closer to him. He was the original dance partner until he met Stephanie. He like again pushes her away. She tries to Stephanie doesn't show up to the club one night, and she's there, and they go into the car, and she wants him to fool around with her. He's like, "Oh, do you have protection?" She says no. He's like, I'm good." So she's almost doing this as a way to like get back at Tony, but then his friends like fully take advantage, and it's really dark and gross.
it puts almost like a dark cloud in the movie. In a way.
It does, but
If
it
there wasn't
also
a damper on that
acts
scene already.
yeah, but that comes after. But it acts as like a spring, like we're starting to see as the movie continues on, like he's just kind of over his friend group. Like these people they even mention it early on, like right after the first 2001 Odyssey scene, and they're playing basketball in the park. There's some verbal confrontation with some minorities there. And they're looking at cars, and they're like, "Oh, look at this Mercedes. It's $8,900. None of us here will ever be able to afford it." Like, having that mindset means, yes, you will never be able to afford that car. So, like, and like these are 20-year-old guys. Like, that's a very infectious mindset to have.
Immediately resigned to your fate. And there's one thing in this movie, the fact that there's a Rocky poster in his bedroom, I think speaks a lot to this movie. Because I did see a little bit parallels of like, you know, the guy like, you know, walking through the streets. What's interesting about this movie, the guy who directed Rocky, John Alvison, was originally supposed to direct this movie, and then a month before like principal photography started, he got fired. Essentially, he dropped out because of creative differences and stuff like that. So it would have been interesting in that parallels. And you want to know who directed the sequel to this, Staying Alive?
Who?
Him?
Sylvester Stallone.
Get out of here.
Yeah. So
Well, that movie was absolute garbage, first of all.
Well, yeah. I never seen the movie. From all accounts,
Neither have I, but
I've
heard that it's horrible.
It's awful, but apparently I was been reading a book lately about like the Last Action Heroes, which is all about Sly Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger. And there's a whole like a little blurb about how like basically what happened was Travolta saw Rocky 3 and was like, "This guy's fucking awesome. Like we should get that director." And his agent was like, "Well, guess who else I represent? The director of Rocky 3, Sylvester Stallone." And then somehow he ended up directing this shitty sequel, which I want to see it because it looks like it's one of those so bad it's good. I saw a review on Letterboxd that said, "This is what would happen if Sylvester Stallone directed Showgirls." And I was like, sold. That's all I need.
It would have been funny if like instead of Tony idolizing Al Pacino, he idolized Sylvester Stallone. Sly Stallone. Hey, look at me, Sly Stallone. Oh my god!
I do love that. I do love that sequence in this in Saturday Night Fever where like you see he's gets compared to Al Pacino, and the next morning he's telling his grandma, he's like, Attica, Al Pacino, just so charming. Like immediately you see this movie, the opening credits, you understand why John Travolta became a superstar, because Saturday Night Fever has like the strut where he goes on to Staying Alive.
It's the strut
to end all struts.
You know, you're feeling the strut, you're feeling the rhythm, it's going to the beat, and then that camera just pops, and you just movie star moment. And
right there,
we've talked about this before. Like I think the biggest
we talked about it with Travolta before with Carrie, because even in Carrie he has a movie star moment. Yeah, remember when like it was playing Heat Wave and he was going in? It's like, okay, well, I mean, this is a guy that
you look at his face, like you're just like that's a movie star. Like his face just tells you movie star. And like I always say, the biggest missed potential of this decade was Anyone But You, which was like okay, but it like you have Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Powell, who have gone on to be like two of the bigger stars of this decade, and like you have them in this rom-com together, like, and they're just like kind of flatly introduced, and I'm just like, where did the art of the movie star shot go? Like we need like a proper camera introduction to be like, bam, they're
There's
here.
our guy.
Here's our guy. Here's our girl. Bam. Like I think The Mask with Cameron Diaz.
Because immediately you see it and you're like, Travolta's the coolest fucking guy in the world.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you understand immediately why like he was so popular. Because like I imagine like for audiences that love Welcome Back, Kotter, they're like, holy shit, like Travolta's in this movie and you get this. You see the goods immediately. They give you what you want. They give you the movie star.
and that's the thing is that like you can't really pinpoint an actor to not only just a song, but a scene where when both are meshed together, it leaves a lasting impression on your brain where whenever I'm walking down the street listening to Staying Alive, I put myself in that scene. I just do.
Yeah.
Like I walk to the beat, and I'm fucking looking around. I think I'm the fucking greatest thing since sliced bread. You know, even now, Timmy's fucking jamming out to it. He can't help himself. You know what I mean?
As I'm
Where is
earlier
that?
listening to the soundtrack, pretending like I had any swagger like Travolta. There's one thing I was thinking of when watching the intro, and it made me appreciate this movie a little bit more. Spider-Man 3, when Toby's trying to be fucking cool guy, because he's trying to be
that is so Saturday Night Fever.
That
it's
like
extremely Saturday Night Fever.
I think that one sequence of the movie is underrated because people just hate cringe humor, but just like Tobey Maguire is just a fucking dork, and he's trying to be Travolta, but completely failing because he's a fucking loser.
Because he's Tobey Maguire, and he's playing Peter Parker.
Maguire.
Yeah, like,
and that's why it's so funny because it's just like, and this is a scene that we've seen parodied. I mean, Family Guy has done parodies of it, and like I'm sure like so
every
many
movie has done
places.
parodies.
If you want to talk about parodies, you know, you have Samurai Night Fever from Saturday Night Live. Like I think it's like the disco movement started with, it was gay and black clubs really started this kind of movement here, and then some of the other like ethnic communities, so like the Italians and stuff, like kind of found it and just hosted their own clubs for it, and like it was all very like segmented that way. And then you have this movie. Like I was thinking, has any movie ever been better of like time and place? You know, like getting the time and the moment just down. Like usually Hollywood's like 3 years late on this stuff. You know, like they're usually like, oh, the disco movement's huge. We got to get a movie into production. It comes out 3 years later and nobody cares anymore.
Well, actually, this is what's interesting about this movie, that Travolta said in interviews at the time that he thought that by the time he was doing this movie, that Saturday Night Fever was a retro nostalgia type spoof of the disco craze. Travolta was like, my friends and I all thought that disco like reign was from 1974 to 1976 when it ended. So he thought this was making fun of it. And then Saturday Night Fever was such a fucking huge hit, and the soundtrack especially, that it just created another revival wave. It just extended the disco craze.
Right.
I mean, that's how the cultural impact is. I mean, we were talking about soundtrack month. This movie revitalized a genre. This movie just
this is one of the 10
the Bee Gees revitalized that genre, man.
This soundtrack won Grammy for Best Album of the Year. And I don't hold a ton of credence to the Grammys because if all the award shows that I think are rigged, that one might be the biggest rigged award show of all of them. But one Best Album, it's like multi-platinum. It is one of the greatest selling albums. I think it's in the top 10 of all time.
Before Thriller, this was the greatest selling album of all time. Like that's how insane it was.
And this is a movie album. Like this was everywhere. You could not avoid it. And then what year? I think it was 1980 when. So obviously disco becomes huge. You have this huge movement of this kind of this music.
Club,
so you have people,
Studio 54,
especially coming out of that
in
like
the New York era,
and especially from that rock era, transitioning from that rock era into that disco era, right? Like people started to really rise against it, and that capitulated in the White Sox hosting a doubleheader in July. It was 25 cents for a ticket if you brought a disco record, because in between games, they were going to blow up disco records. It was, so they literally, after the first game,
my favorite.
They literally, all these people just threw disco records. They let a giant fall, destroyed the field. They had to cancel and forfeit the second game of this doubleheader. Like, that is hilarious to think about.
Essentially insinuating a riot.
And I mean, that's what happens though
It
when something gets so big. Like everybody, like there were disco like Christmas albums. Like come on, like
Well, this is
what are
the
we
thing
doing?
that like fucking even Kiss did a disco song, and their fans at the time were like, "Fuck that song!"
Yeah.
Like I was made for loving you. Like this is not Kiss. This is not the
Fucking,
Kiss
they
I know.
made and speaking, it's funny that you brought up Star Wars with the whole 1977 thing.
Oh yeah, yeah.
They made a disco version of the Star Wars theme at the time.
Oh,
That's how big
it's
disco
awesome.
was back then. It is sick.
It's so tacky, but it's fucking
the
I have it on
great-
a
it's amazing.
45 actually.
It's maybe the
Yeah, yeah.
it's maybe the greatest thing ever. Because I'm about to pull it up, obviously.
Well, yeah. When you pull up the soundtrack though for this movie, I mean, like first of all, the Bee Gees, like we said before, they're dead in the water pretty much. Like around this era, like they were, they said that in the DVD commentary. Like, yeah, we were not like great in this era, and they have like some of the most iconic songs like ever in this soundtrack. "Staying Alive," "How Deep Is Your Love," "Night Fever." I want to talk about "Night Fever" in particular, in regards to this movie, because I watched this movie first time seeing it. And the dance scenes immediately just, like, gave me goosebumps, and I was like, "Holy shit, this is just, like, so charming," just bounces off the screen. You're loving this, and when you watch the Night Fever sequence, I think that first of all, that song is awesome, and the way they just dance around it and choreograph it, where they're all doing the hand claps in general, and then the way that they shoot this, scene, instead of just being, like, static, like, I don't know, like, was it Soul Train or whatever, where it's, like, just a static shot just showing people dancing,
Yeah,
which is
that
cool,
was
but,
so
like, whatever. Yeah, yeah, that's one thing, but instead, Ralph DeBeau, who shot this movie, he also shot Coal Miner's Daughter. They just do from like they do one angle where they shoot it from like just John Travolta, like almost close up, then they zoom out, and they do a one angle which is like almost looking up from above, seeing them all dance, and that's really fucking cool in itself. Then they shoot from the side, and then they shoot from almost like a helicopter shot, like almost from all the way from above,
Yeah.
where you're seeing them again. And you get in that moment, and with Night Fever going on, you're like, this is the coolest fucking shot I've seen sequence I've seen in the movie.
I watched a behind the scenes like thing from one of the DVDs releases of the movie, and they were talking about how they're like movie theaters had to hire more ushers to get people to from stop dancing in the things, which that sounds like a fabrication, but I bet it happened once.
yeah.
Well, apparently the Saturday Night Fever had like a Rocky Horror type like revival screenings in the 90s, like midnight screens where people just show up and just like watch it. I can see
And
people
dance
just
to it,
dancing in the
This would be a
aisles,
great
whatever.
this would be a great midnight movie. Like
Well,
it's really fun
yeah.
to start, and then it gets dark and kind of depressing at the end. It's kind of a perfect 70s movie in that regard when you think about it.
Well, it's funny because like you think of like 70s movies, like depressing ones. You have like your Taxi
You have
Drivers, and
everything.
you have like Deer Hunter, like you practically everything. And then like you don't think of Saturday Night Fever, but then you watch, you're like, oh yeah, shit, this
Like
is depressing.
it takes a very dark turn. Like it was like the underbelly was all there, and I'm kind of sitting there being like, I don't remember how they all paid this off. And then it just turns to 11 immediately, and it just kind of doesn't stop from that point.
It's the
It's
last
weird
half
because it's almost
hours when it all goes down. Like they allude to it like throughout the movie, but like it in like the last half hour when they crash into the little like shop
Rican,
Puerto Rican
yeah.
shop there. Um yeah, like it's all downhill straight from there, you know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, a
It,
lot happens in that last half hour.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and in some ways, it almost just like escalates somewhere. You're like, holy shit, did not see this coming. There's one thing where like I feel like in a movie like Boogie Nights, like bring it back to that, that feels a little more natural when it starts getting more and
Well,
more dark
it's
and
in
like
the adult industry, like it's kind of known
yeah,
for quick careers, if you will, and high burnout rate, and that seemed to be like coming with it. With this movie, like I think one of the things that like from a narrative perspective, like we get like the beginning of the movie really start to understand Tony's character, like when he just sits down with his parents, like the dad's out of a job, the mom is highly religious, and just like whatever Tony is doing in his life, the parents are not about it. Like
Yeah. They
he's
know
not.
exactly what's going on.
Yeah, they don't like what he's doing. I thought it was so funny when I was watching. Like when there's the scene where John Travolta's getting ready and he's like doing his hair and he's shirtless and he's just like in his little tighty whities and he's doing his hair, and like the dad walks in, and I just thought of the scene from The Sopranos where It's like at the end of The Sopranos where
I already know what
AJ's
you're
like on
gonna
a
say.
chat room and he's just
Yeah.
like talking and laughing, and Tony just looks at him with like
Just
such
detest.
disgust and like
Yeah.
just absolute hatred towards his son, being like, this is what this kid is doing. And
Yeah.
and then you take it into this like this, Depression era dad from in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, just
Oh,
coming
absolutely.
in, watching his son like doing his hair, just like
And like
looking at him
even
like,
in the beginning
what?
when like he smacks him upside the head, he's like, he's always touching my hair. I spend a lot of time on
Like
my
my
hair.
hair, yeah. I was thinking about this. I genuinely like John Travolta as a movie star has such an up and down like career, like ultimate highs and then like a lot of lows. And I realized like John Travolta's secret sauce is just playing dumb guys. Like like if he gets a dumb guy, it's perfect. It's exactly what you want from John Travolta. But I feel like if he tries to do anything else, it just doesn't work for him. And they never really typecasted him as a dumb.
Well, there's also like the Pulp Fiction aspect. When you watch Pulp Fiction, I mean, I think Quentin Tarantino knew a secret ingredient to Travolta is you gotta have a good dance sequence, and they have a good dance sequence in Pulp Fiction.
But no,
You know,
no, but like Vincent's a dumb guy. Like he's a dumb
well,
guy who thinks he's
That's part of
smart.
it too.
I don't think it needs a dance sequence for John Travolta to be good, but I think he needs to be playing a dumb guy. Like John Travolta, I like for a guy with such like a like pronounced features and like a traditionally like very handsome face, there is just something about when you look at his eyes and you're just like, is this guy dumb? Like I'm
Like,
just saying, like if you look
yeah,
at a picture of him.
and like his like mannerisms, like his comebacks, just sort of like it's your typical sort of like, oh, what do you mean? What do you about? What do you worry about with hanging out with my
Well,
friends? It's none of your
But he like
fucking
almost
business.
sometimes like
it
on
is
his
it is so
delivery of his words, he like stumbles a little bit with
Yes.
like the delivery of it
yeah,
too. So
yeah.
it just kind of like adds to it where it's like this guy is almost like he's starting to talk, but the brain hasn't formed the words yet. So it's just he's just waiting for it to come. And like I just think that's John. Like I can't say that. Oh, that's
And he's
Tony
very
Manero feature.
reactionary
That is
too.
just John
Well,
Travolta.
it's also funny, like his friends and him like are like very homophobic and like say like all this shit. Meanwhile, they're dancing to disco every fucking night, which is very in time with the gay culture.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
but I mean, but
But
that's
that's how
how.
they got girls back then. Believe it or not, like as flamboyant as they did look, that's really
Well,
how you got
I was
girls.
thinking about like the club culture where like so for example at the venue I work at we occasionally have like gimme disco nights, which is like you have a DJ playing disco
ABBA and
music,
BJ's, yeah.
all of the stuff, everything you think of, the soundtrack, shit like that. And you'd think it would be like just like old people, but it's like all ages. There's people like as like 21-year-olds or 18-year-olds are like, I want to dance to some disco music, and like that's fucking fun. And when you think of like what nightclubs were, nightclubs for us were like shitty like rap music at the time.
It was like
Yeah.
10
it
years
was
ago.
like
And
especially when
EDM.
we started going too. It's like
Yeah, yeah.
dubstep was popular. Like, do you know
Oh,
how
yeah,
horrible
that's the big thing.
dubstep is
When you
at a
said
nightclub?
silent disco, I was like, all right, is it like EDM silent disco or
Oh
is
no,
it like
no. So for
disco
that
disco?
for that specific playlist, my friend was having her 30th birthday party, and she was telling me about it, and I was like, she's like making two playlists, and I was like, are you gonna have a disco playlist? She's like, I would love to, I just don't know what to put into it. And I was like, I got you. And I spent like an hour like curating it and manicuring it into like an order to play the.
I can see you doing it like as I do that too when I make playlists. I go like
Yeah,
track for track. I don't be like, okay,
not
like
even the
this whole
I'm
album, that whole album.
I'm not
I
even the
know you're
biggest.
not normally like that, so I'm very much impressed.
I'm not a playlist guy normally, but somebody needed it for that specific instance. Like I'm going to do it right. Um, and yeah, I feel like with like the disco music in general, and like I've said this a lot, but feel like as large corporate entities grow and it becomes so much more about the bottom line and shareholder value and corporate interest, like we lose soul. And I feel like we live in the era with the least
Yes.
amount of soul in all of our stuff made.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
when you go back and listen to this disco music, it is just full of life. It is full of soul. It is full of
Oh,
wonder.
yeah.
It's full of fun. Like it just radiates that energy, and it's just so
It makes you want to dance.
It makes you want to dance. It's so
No, but
captivating
you
in
feel
that
it,
way.
you know? Like, soul
Uh,
is just, you feel it in the lyrics, not just the beat, you know? And
Yeah,
for it to be
yeah.
it's the tone of the singer too. It's the voices. It's the harmonies.
The beat. Yeah.
It's everything
Every,
coming into there.
everything
and it's
about it.
like when you're actually listening to it, not like you're shopping at Target and it's playing over the loudspeaker, but like when you're actually like listening to that kind of music, like you just get transported away. You're just it's jumping
You get in the mood.
dancing, yeah. You're just like
Well, it's like
should
when
be.
I was rewatching Boogie Nights like 2 months ago, I immediately was like, okay, I need to make a disco playlist. Like, why don't I have
I'll
a
give you my
dedicated
disco
disco
playlist.
playlist?
It's
Yeah.
It's a
And
banger.
my one was like Boogie Nights theme, where it's like I call it Jack Horner's fucking like house mix or something like that, which is Burt Reynolds' character in Boogie Nights. I think I sent Upstairs Steve like the link. I was like, yeah, this is the new playlist I'm making, because Upstairs Steve and I will collaborate on playlists a lot. Like when we did Clueless over the summer,
Yeah.
him
Oh,
and I
God.
made like a fucking like over 100 song playlist of like 90s bangers that would like fit in a Cher Horowitz party from Clueless. Like
Honestly,
this is the
that
fucking like
lasted
music
so
nerd shit.
long. That lasted
It was
like
honestly
6
like
months.
6 months later. 6 months later, we were
It
like,
was when
I
we
feel like
covered for the podcast, because I hadn't seen the movie at the time, but we just kept it running. Like, oh, Claire would totally listen to this song.
I feel like there's probably gonna still be like fucking months from now where one of us could be like, yo, added this song to the Share playlist.
Now, like, I do want to circle back here, because it's very important that Timmy mentioned soul, and like how like this disco music has soul. One of the tracks on the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack that's also featured in the movie is Tavares's cover of More Than a Woman. Now,
Mhm.
I don't know if you guys know who
Mm.
Tavares is. They are a R&B group from the early 70s to mid 70s. Their biggest hit before this was It Only Takes a Minute. If you haven't heard that song, it's incredible. It was number one on the US charts, and they had a bunch of other number one hits immediately after that. Their first one was, I believe they covered She's Gone by Hall & Oates. But what's
Nice.
interesting is that this song not only is like, half of it is really essentially a Bee Gees album, right? But they cover a Bee Gees song that was made for essentially this album, and they put it on there, just to show you the impact of what disco was back then. That you
Yeah.
have this, and like, and a lot of disco songs, like it really does kind of like mesh together with R&B, soul, sort of the funk, like, like back then, like, they almost sort of went hand in hand. But the fact that they made a cover of More Than a Woman and it got featured on this soundtrack as well
Mhm.
is not only huge for the band, but it just goes to show the impact that the Bee Gees had on disco as a whole, you know?
Well, what shocks me is that not every song that the Bee Gees contributed to the soundtrack was specifically for the soundtrack. Like you should be dancing was released like a year before this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I assume like this was just like written for this movie.
No,
Um,
there were 4 songs that were written for this movie.
but when you have like in Saturday Night Fever, you have Disco Inferno, and that song fucking rocks. You have Boogie Shoes. You hear Boogie Shoes in the background. You're like,
Steve,
hell yeah, Casey and the Sunshine Band. You need that.
Steve, you hear Disco Inferno, who do you think of?
Who do I think of?
You're the Yankee fan here, you better think of them.
Oh, Bernie Williams, of course.
There you go. Sorry, I had to get my baseball season's coming up soon. I had to get my baseball
Yeah.
reference in there. Tommy's just sitting there being like, I don't know who Bernie Williams is.
Burn, baby, burn.
I've heard the name. I know the name.
Oh, God.
Mm.
I'm cringing almost as hard as I did that it took me that long to realize where you were going with this, Timmy.
Yeah, I
You
was a
have,
little
you, ha-
embarrassed.
you have to plug a baseball reference somewhere.
I
It's just,
had
you know,
to, I
coming.
had to, I had to do it. I had to
Well,
sneak it in
it's
there.
the interesting thing about the soundtrack and the like dance sequences in general in Saturday Night Fever that they really like tie into the plot. When you get into it, where like each like dance sequence is almost its own little narrative in itself. Where like especially like in the climax, when like he's like doing the whole dance contest, this whole movie is like building towards this dance contest where he wins $500, and you can really feel like when I think the song he did was it More Than a Woman, where him and like Travolta and the girl he's like trying to see. They're trying to go
Well,
in and they do
they
this Bee Gees song. That's a slow song.
Yeah, they
Well,
slow
there's
it down a lot. It's very interesting compared to like we see one couple coming in, they're kind of doing like a fast dance, and then we see a Latina couple come in after them and maybe arguably do a better dance.
Oh, I think immediately you can see it. I think that like when they do More Than Women, I think that like it was like good dancing, but we've seen better dancing out of
it's
Travolta in that
interesting
movie. I think
because it's the first song that they rehearsed together, but they rehearsed the Tavares version when they were in the dance studio together. The first time that
yeah,
Stephanie
yeah.
and Tony dance together, it's to the Tavares version. But then when they're in the club, it's to the Bee Gees version.
Oh,
And I think that the whole thing of that is that they almost get like almost too romantically involved in that moment, where they just start kissing each other and just like get in that
and
moment. And
Travolta
then
takes it Tony takes it the complete wrong way when they like share a passionate kiss on the dance floor, and then he
yeah,
Well,
tries
yeah,
to,
because she made her intentions known in the very beginning that we're just friends. Like, you see me as a dance partner, but like,
but
obviously
she's
Tony
like,
had
I'm
like other
working at
intentions
this,
in mind.
and she's like, I'm working at this PR age, and like her character is very interesting too, where she's from this area, but she's trying to get to Manhattan. She's moving to Manhattan, um, and it's the thing that starts to plant the seeds in Tony's mind, and then his relationship with his brother, who Frank Jr., who he was a priest. He was the heralded the saint of the family. Like, if you became a priest in the 1970s in an Italian Catholic household, like you were beyond reproach. And he leaves the Brotherhood, and it's interesting for Tony to kind of get these two events simultaneously happening. Where I think we kind of see it even in those early scenes. Like the first time he's with his friends, and they're at the 2001 nightclub, and like his friends taking out speed. They're like, Tony, come on, you gotta do it, you gotta do it. And he's just like, no, like I don't want to do this. Like, but his friends are just starting to hold him down a little bit,
Yeah,
and
and he always saw that, and his family always saw that, but he is still loyal at the end of
yeah,
the
he's
day.
he's loyal, but
Mhm.
he, the introduction of Stephanie, who is like, yeah, I'm from here, but like I want to get out of town. I want to get out of Dodge, and
well,
like
what's
making him
funny.
making him realize his like in his like putting the seeds in his brain to being like, I can move on. I can move out of here. Like I can do different things in my life other than this is I think
Because you have to imagine their life is pretty much like the same every weekend. They work these dead end jobs. They go to the club. They dance. They
Yeah,
suddenly hook
like
up with women,
despite his
and then they
looks,
go
he's
to the
19 years
bridge.
old.
well, and they
Yeah,
all they
they
all
go.
live at home, so they sleep with these girls in the backseat of the one car that they have.
Yeah, yeah, and they're all watching each other like, hey, like, are you done fucking
Hurry
this
up!
girl? Come on, move it
Hurry
up,
up!
move it
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
That's
So
so
like,
weird. That would bother the
I
hell out of me.
Yeah, yeah. So I couldn't do that. But I do love like the introduction to Stephanie and how Stephanie interacts in some of the scenes with Travolta, where she's just name dropping people left and
And
right at like every corner.
Oh,
he
yeah.
doesn't know who he's like.
And
I was with
some of us like, how do you not know who Eric Clapton is? Like, I feel like that'd be a person you know
Yeah,
back
like
then.
he's not that removed from 70s culture. In fact, he's pretty prevalent in the 70s. Like,
yeah.
I
No,
don't
but
know.
it's
I thought that
funny
was strange.
that it's like kind of going off of like she's trying to show off to him, and it's like that part of it is not what's like connecting with him in terms of like showing off. It's the fact that she went to New York, and then you have that great scene at where he helps her move into the city, and it turns out she's been sleeping with some older guy
Mm.
who she broke it off with, but he's giving her his apartment. Um,
Essentially a glorified sugar daddy.
yeah, and like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I think like we see over the course of the relationship between Stephanie and Tony, like Tony is starting to fall more in love with her. Like he's starting to feel that more.
Mhm.
And we're seeing more from Stephanie is that she's starting to like him more, right? Like she's starting to be like, I like this guy. Like I don't mind having him in my life, in my corner. Like I think he's a charming guy. I think he's fun. All of this, but she's not falling head over heels with him.
Yeah, by
Um,
no means.
and I think you get that great bridge scene where you know it's kind of the first time Travolta like expresses that like he wants more out of life. Like he knows all these details about I don't know which bridge it was. It looked like the Verrazano, but it's supposed to be implying Manhattan, because it's certainly not implying Staten Island. I'm sorry to our Staten Island listeners, but
Bay Ridge that would be the closest big bridge.
yeah,
But,
no,
like,
I
if
know
they're
that's what, but
if they're going to Studio 54, then maybe it's a different
well, you
one.
could either take the Brooklyn Bridge if you want the one that's pretty for the picture, or you would take the Williamsburg Bridge over.
Well, what was there? Did anyone else get like anxiety watching the bridge scenes? Like even before, I didn't know.
Even,
This
like,
is
the
not
trench
the,
one
these
in
are
the
we will
beginning.
cover those bridge scenes, but this is it. I'm covering a different bridge scene.
Oh, overall,
Overall,
yeah.
where Tony and Stephanie are talking, and it's about him kind of expressing out loud to us the first time that like there's more than just Bay Ridge Queen, and that his friends kind of drive him crazy, and he's ready to do more
out
with
of
his
there.
life, get out of there. Um, and like I think that's kind of the beauty of that relationship. I think it's very easy to make this movie. Guy falls in love with the girl resists a little, but then she falls in love with him. But even after he like makes a move on her, which is bordering on sexual assault, most likely sexual assault,
Mhm.
and he go after his friend kills himself in the gang rape sequence, and he just like is kind of wandering New York and goes to her apartment and like comes in as a friend. Um, and it's just like, I just want to be friends with you. And like, I need to figure out how I can get here too. Um, Again, it's just like a great resolution to this movie. And it's very atypical to what you would think of like this smash hit Hollywood movie produced by Paramount
It's
Pictures.
interesting because they
Well,
literally say at the end, "Now we're just gonna be friends," but then it ends with a kiss because it had to be, right?
No, it wasn't a
Does it?
kiss.
No,
It
I
was,
know. It ends up a handshake.
it was no, it was
It's
a
like
peck on. She kisses him on the cheek as a
Oh,
Yeah,
goodbye.
okay,
That's
it's like
not
a
a
friend
friend.
thing.
That's not a kiss.
Maybe I'm
No,
reading a
that's
little
not.
too
That's
much
not.
into that.
Yeah, that's a platonic kiss on the cheek. Well, I didn't expect like I'm very curious how the PG version of this plays, where like they just
You must be
exercise
missing so
out.
much context.
Yeah, and like I feel like one of the producers had complained like, oh, like you're like missing some of the point of the movie of like how the underbelly was in this area.
Yeah, like what life was like, and it's hard to, to your point of people who won't have nuanced conversations on film or anything, that you can't watch this and realize that the movie, just because the movie's showing it, does not
Yeah,
mean that they're condoning it, right? Like,
yeah. Quick sidebar: did you guys know that White Castle was a chain in the 70s?
it
Yes.
makes
This is
sense. I love that they went
Yeah,
to
yeah.
White Castle though.
There's a scene where they go to White
My
Castle. I was like,
like,
I did not know it was around back then.
Oh,
And
yeah.
but again,
Absolutely.
it's another moment in the movie where we just see like they start talking about cheeseburgers, and then the friends start getting on the table making buffoons of themselves and like spitting burger out of their mouth, and you just kind of see Tony sitting there being like, oh, God, not again, like
Well,
not again, like come on.
also a great runner is like him at his like hardware or paint store, wherever it is,
Hmm.
where he's constantly working there. He gets the raise, he's really proud about it, but his dad doesn't give a shit. But then there's one moment in the movie where he gets briefly fired after a heat exchange, and his boss is like, no, you can come back, and like, hey, like you're really good here, like I think you can make a future here, like, hey, like so and so's been here for 15 years, so and so's been here for 19 years. And then
You just see
they
his
zoom
face.
in.
Yeah,
Yeah, they zoom in on his face, and his face is just like one of shock and horror, being like, "I don't want my life to end up like this. I don't want to work here for
be an
another."
assistant at a paint store for 20 years. Yeah, and I mean it's a different generational divide, but it just like the theme of the movie is finding a way to chase your dreams. And like Tony's dream is just leaving. Like
Yeah.
it's not even
And
like I
breaking
need to be
from
the
those
biggest.
constructs, you know?
I don't need to be. It's not. I need to be the biggest dancer in the world. It's not. It's none of that. It is just like dancing is his tool to to express himself, to communicate with others.
Yeah.
I
No,
think
like I
in
said in the
like
beginning, it's a form of escapism from all the bullshit, but you're
from all the
constantly
bullshit.
reminded of the bullshit.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And we get that through that there. But I also wanted to touch on, because like we have Bobby, Joey, Double J, and Gus, who are like the cronies that hang behind him. But Bobby's the one that kind of gets pushed to the front and the forefront, I would say, out of all of them. And when I was
He
looking at
has like almost like a what's his name from Rebel Without a Cause vibe.
dude,
to
they
him.
talked about that in the documentary.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
literally said that this relationship was based off of the relationship between James Dean and Salmoneo, Plato and Jim in Rebel Without a Cause. Like it was a huge influence in that
Yeah, yeah.
relationship where Bobby is kind of chasing after Tony. Like he just is always, are you gonna call me?
In
Are
the
you gonna call
shadow.
me? But also
He's like the Philip Seymour Hoffman and Boogie Nights type
yeah.
thing almost.
But when I saw his character, I immediately said, "This is a '70s movie. That guy's gonna die." Like
Yeah.
without a question. I was like, "This guy's dying in this movie." Um,
Well, I'll be honest, on first watch, I did not think this is gonna be a movie that have a character die in it, like whatsoever.
It's a '70s movie.
Eh.
Somebody dies.
Yeah,
Somebody
I
always
don't know what I
dies
was
in
in
a
for.
'70s movie, Tommy.
Yeah, yeah.
You can't have a movie from the 1970s without somebody dying in it. But I did think it was like Tony was clearly like the leader of that group. And I thought it was interesting that like he definitely like was so checked out of his friend group, like where he borrows the car from Bobby and Bobby's like, "You're gonna call me, right? You're gonna call me, you're gonna call me." And like obviously he doesn't. And then when they're on the bridge and Bobby, usually the scaredy cat, is more out there. He's like dancing on the bridge, he's climbing the high wire, he's doing all these things, and he gets to a very dangerous point and like where the conflict arises where he's going, you didn't call me. You didn't call me. And like, I think for me personally, like narratively, like I would have wanted a little bit more out of that relationship. Like I felt like Rebel Without a Cause had a little bit more be going on with those relationships
Oh yeah.
that it like fit more where Bobby just like, it felt like we need a way to make this kid kill himself accidentally. So that's how they did it. But it's another like fascinating like layer to this. And it just kind of shows us who Tony is as a character in relation to these people, and like all his other friends seem to have moved on from him being the de facto leader of the group, if you will, and just kind of
Yeah,
like
no, they
if Tony's like,
definitely
"Don't
don't
do
see him. If he is
it,"
the leader, they don't see him as such. They end up doing their own thing.
they do their own. They're starting to do their own thing. They're being aggressive towards women. They're doing things that he's just like
So
go away. And Bobby's the
yeah,
last
yeah.
one who still kind of views him with like puppy dog eyes.
100%. And it's crazy about the movie. Apparently, with the bridge sequences in this in Saturday Night Fever, Singapore banned Saturday Night Fever because teenagers were reenacting the bridge sequences as a test of their manhood.
Oh my god!
and they're like, yeah, like no, we can't have this movie play because like monkey see, monkey do type of sequence or thing where it's like, okay,
Oh,
like Jesus Christ, and it was like one of those things where like there's a partial like beam section where they constructed as like basically they make it like it look like it was like fine and like there's mattresses and everything under that, and they pretty much like made it look like they were actually dying, and they fucked off the actress playing Annette by like jumping off, and she thought that the actors actually died. Her scream was real.
Oh wow!
Like Don Prescott literally like thought that the guys like fucking fell off the bridge and was like, oh my god, like these actors in this movie I'm in just died. And they did. No one told her on set that they had this little platform that they were going to be fine in, and the look of like horror and anger that she
So that's
had
real.
was all real. That was her literally being like,
Wow.
her screaming out, "You fuckers!" That was not scripted. That was her in the moment being like, "What the fuck?" Because I'm watching these sequences, I'm thinking, first of all, is this shot on like a studio backlot, or is this like whatever? And then I realized like this is actually like they shot this on a bridge. That's insane. Like the amount of assurance you must have had for that.
Tommy, it was a movie from the 1970s. You're thinking of that from a very modern lens. There was no insurance put on this. Okay, it was just they just
Yeah.
were like,
For a movie with
we're just
Yeah,
filming
just
this
trust
on a
us. We
bridge.
got
and
this."
We got this. We're just gonna put
we'll
some
be fine.
mattresses.
Travolta's not gonna die.
Yeah, they're not. We're not gonna let John Travolta die. Don't
Don't even have
believe
like
us.
a
Believe 'em.
stunt specialist on set just in case.
Yeah.
All
All
right.
right,
Speaking
John
of boogie
Travolta
nights,
next.
who is the star of the show? Who gave the best performance? The John
This is a
Travolta
pretty easy
movie
one.
star award. Here, I mean, I feel like
Well,
everybody kind of gives a good performance. It's very like raw. I wouldn't even say it's like good acting, but it's like good getting like
It's
New
good
York
acting all
actors.
around.
to
Unlike Judgment Night. But
it's realistic amateur acting in a way. Yeah. And even like you have the little character moments of like the guy who runs the dance studio he goes to. That guy is just like a little fun, like
little
moment, right?
slimy ball. Like, and that's another character to even mention um to Travolta's character when he catches um Stephanie and him dancing, and he's like, he slept with 60 of the girls. The guy's a total sleazeball. Where like you're seeing his character start to express what is actually affronting him more and more, and like what's actually like bothering him more and more as his relationship with Stephanie like develops. Um, it's a lot of like little character actor moments, but I think how could it not be Travolta? Like
Yeah.
this is career defining. This literally
no,
shaped.
all
This
the
literally
minor
shaped.
characters have depth, but like, obviously John Travolta is the one that seals the show here. Like the whole thing is revolved around him. It's his moves. Even the minor characters are all looking up to him in
Yeah,
some form or aspect, right?
this is maybe the easiest selection I think we've ever had. Just
Well, yeah, there's that, and also Bee Gees.
and the
I
Bee
mean,
Gees, yeah.
yeah, and the Bee Gees. I mean,
The
when you
fact
talk
that
about the
the
soundtrack,
soundtrack is the only thing that competes with John Travolta.
yeah, and this is a thing where like so many John Travolta movies after this had to have a dance sequence because of Saturday Night Fever. Where like you have like Look Who's Talking Now has like tacked on dance sequence because like we have Travolta in here, we gotta get this in. Right there. And you have so many moments where like he's doing that thing of his knees during one of the Bee Gees songs where he's just like going up and down on his knees, and it's like this is fucking the most swagger I've seen out of someone dancing.
Are you ready, comedy partner? Waka waka.
Yes,
does
it's
Saturday
always
Night Fever work as a Muppet adaptation? Steve, you gotta let me ask the question, dude. You gotta let me ask the question.
we're all thinking it, bro. And you want to know something? I'm always thinking it because the answer is always yes for me.
Well, so with Saturday Night Fever, there in 1978 was a Muppet LP for Sesame Street called Sesame Street Fever, and it has Grover dressed up in a white suit doing the John Travolta like disco pose, and then it also has Bert, Ernie, and Cookie Monster dressed up as the Bee Gees,
Oh man,
and yeah, and
that's
I guess
groundbreaking.
this must yeah. So like right there immediately. And this and that album also reached number 75 on Billboard's like top LPs at the time.
That's
And
incredible.
yeah. So what a time.
I want to listen to disco, but I have kids in the house.
Yeah.
What can I do?
There's a song on it
Sesame
called
Street.
Sesame Street Fever, which Robin Gibb from the Bee Gees helped co-write.
Oh
That's
wow.
awesome. That's unbelievable. That's awesome.
I-
That's
I-
fantastic.
So yeah, Saturday Night Fever would work as a Muppet adaptation.
The amount of
Oh, my-
celebrity involvement with Sesame Street warms my heart because it shows that like we're not just doing it for the kids, we're doing it for the adults too. You know?
Well, the best way to have parents show your kids something is make something that attracts the kids, but also makes you want to watch it too.
Absolutely.
The Pixar format. All right, review time. Give me your score to 5, Tommy. Let's kick it off with you.
All right, so soundtrack month, we're doing the soundtrack too. I am gonna give the soundtrack. Also, real quick, Judgment Night soundtrack. I'm gonna revise my score for that.
Oh,
Judgment
God.
Night. Real quick, Judgment Night soundtrack. I'm gonna go 4 out of 5 because I realized there's some songs I didn't really like or didn't really vibe with. This one, I'm also gonna go. I think we go 4.5 out of 5. Really great disco album for Saturday Night Fever. There's just like a couple instrumental songs I was like, whatever about. But when you get into like a wedding, you're gonna hear one of the Bee Gees songs, especially "Staying Alive." And this movie just plays with it so well. Like you see the dance sequences in this, and it plays into the soundtrack, and it just hits, and you want to be on that score. So 4.5 out of 5 for the soundtrack, and for the movie, I think I'm gonna give a similar score, 4.5 out of 5. Travolta's magnetic. You can see why he became a movie star after this. You can see like the secret success. Soundtrack, which is actually in the movie, unlike last week, is amazing and it hits. And even the way
It gives the movie so much energy.
yeah, and the way they shoot the dance sequences are so interesting. I think there's a little dark cloud of the movie, but I think it's okay. I think that like you kind of see it coming. No, I don't think it completely derails the movie, like some people think. But
I think it's it's what these characters would have done, and it happens,
Yeah.
at the hour and a half mark, 90 plus minutes.
It plays within the
If you couldn't
yeah.
see that these guys would do this, your media literacy needs to be reevaluated because you're not
Mm.
processing
Yeah.
what you're watching because it's not a 60-second TikTok.
Yeah.
Steve,
No,
review time.
Echoing Tommy, 4.5 out of 5 across the board. This movie really captures what the disco scene was like in New York in the late 70s. Soundtrack is absolutely perfect, not just featuring the Bee Gees, but some other artists as well. Fifth Over Beethoven's an iconic disco song as well that's featured on this album. Fantastic song. And yeah, it just captures everything that you'd want to know about that whole music scene in New York at the time, and has an absolutely killer soundtrack that showcases one of the most influential artists of that time. So 4.5 out of 5 across the board.
Yeah, so for me, soundtrack 5 out of 5. I love this music. I'm sorry, this
It's
is
perfect
just
for what it is, right?
I can
Yeah.
listen to this. I can just I'm not sitting here and acting like it's the symphony, but I can listen to it over and over and over again and be very happy with myself. For the movie, I'm gonna go 4 out of 5. I think it's just a little messy. I think it's maybe it was my Amazon copy. Some of it felt like ugly, like not in like the cinematography, but like the camera wasn't properly like zoomed. Like it was just like focused. Like there were just like weird moments in there. Maybe that was just my cut of it on from Amazon, but I just did notice that. I think it's a really engaging story. I think I think not so much the language for me personally, but the rape sequence at the end feels it's tough. It's not the easiest thing to watch in the world.
No rape scene's easy, but like you're
Yeah,
not really
in
expecting it from a movie like this.
from your disco movie.
Yeah.
But it is fun. It's energetic. It's raw. It's real. And it tells a story of a guy chasing a dream he doesn't even really know, but a dream to just leave home. And I think it does that really, really well. I would recommend this movie to anyone. 4 out of 5. Steve, what an episode. Probably the fewest laughs we had, but I think one of our best like conversations we've had.
No, I mean, honestly, it's one of those things where like there's a lot to unpack in this movie, and usually have me on for the yucks, but like as soon as I found out you guys were reviewing this movie, I'm like, oh god, I gotta get on this for a lot more reasons than one. But yeah, like
Yeah.
you know, it's something that like I grew up with, if that makes sense, just in my house, just hearing my parents tell stories from back in the day and all that stuff. Like, I mean, they grew up in the Bronx. This takes place in Brooklyn, but it's still New York in the 70s, and it really it really was a time in history, and it's something that is like, revered in anybody's household that grew up in that area. And, it's something that's really not captured to this extent in any movie, in its time, if not at all.
Yeah.
Very interesting to see a bunch of guys in New York City excited to go to 2001. Just gonna say that.
Well, influence on movies goes a long way, right?
Also, I got to
If
shout
only they
out
know.
I got to shout out Ethel's on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. It's a bar, club, whatever that has like.
Oh, I think you took me there.
I've taken you there a couple times. It's got a go-go dancer, and the guy who owns it only plays disco music. He only plays movies from the 70s and 80s, and this is very clearly an influence on that idea behind a bar. So shout out
That place
Ethel's.
is awesome.
Like, it's an awesome place. What is it? It's on 2nd Avenue between. I don't remember the cross street. It's north of 86th Street. Go to Ethel's if you're in the New York area. Steve, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
Tommy,
pleasure.
Any final thoughts before we wrap up this episode?
Well, thank you guys so much for listening. We're continuing our soundtrack month. I'll talk about it in a little bit. I want to mention our sponsors on this week's Haven't Seen It. First off, we have Old Glory. OldGlory.com is a website where you can get so many great movie merch. Stuff like Back to the Future, Jurassic Park, Star Wars, Wizard of Oz, Goonies, Cheech and Chong, even stuff like The Walking Dead. And you have your amazing sports memorabilia for any team you can think of. So at checkout, use the promo code CNET and you can get 15% off. And second up, we are sponsoring Connecticut Cold Classics. They have 2 events coming up. By the time this recording, they'll be doing Jason Takes Manhattan on Friday the 13th, March 13th. So it's a terrible movie, but so much fun. It's going to be amazing with a crowd. Jason in Manhattan for maybe 15 minutes and the rest on a boat. Ridiculous movie. And then next up, they have on April 18th, it's the Night of the Living Dead remake from 1990 and the Dawn of the Dead remake from 2004. 2 really fun zombie movies. Again, that's on April 18th. You get tickets for both at ConnecticutColdClassics.com. And I'll be there. Timmy's in Nashville, so it's going to be a little far for him. But again, thank you for our sponsors and thank you for listening for this week's episode. But you can follow us on social media at CNETPod. That's on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And also, we're on Blue Sky, podcnet.bluesky.social. And leave us a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Helps us out, helps us grow the show. So next week, we're continuing Soundtrack Month. And we're going to be covering another movie that soundtrack won Album of the Year at the Grammys. And it's going to be Our Brother, Where Art Thou? I bought the CD last week. So
Ooh, I'm pumped for that. I love that movie.
It's going to be fun. It's a great movie.
And we're having Steve with us here the whole month for Soundtrack Month. Thank you all so much for listening. We will see you next time.